he went, and the Marine kicked into us, and we went right behind him and got off that beach into where we had a little bit of a protection from one of those terraces. And I was pulling an old machine gun cart with a box on it, and it had radios and batteries and phones in it. And I had a rope on the right-hand corner of the front of the box of the cart, and had a stick in it, and I was out here trying to get up one of those terraces, and two guys were on the tongue, the T of the tongue, and then two guys behind pushing, and another guy was on the left side with a rope. And so I was a little bit of ahead of the cart itself, but I got up there and to this terrace, and if you ever been on a farm where there was a pile of wheat and you tried to climb it, that's exactly what this was like. It would just sink into your knees, and then you'd take one step and sink back two. And man, we were struggling. We were pulling dirt and that old volcanic ash right up when the axles up. It was just piling up in front of us, and we were dragging a bunch of that. And so I got to the top of that terrace, and I had finally turned around and was starting digging my heels in. Thought this would help, but that didn't work as good either. But I got to the top, and I said, well, I'll turn around and see what's up on the other side of this terrace, because I didn't know what was there. Was a machine gun nest there or something? I didn't know. And just then, this mortar came down, and just 5 feet in front of me, and I saw the dust kick up on that thing, that old black, ugly bullet shape. And then that bright flash, and then that tremendous wallop of explosion. And then it went all dark as I was knocked out. So I started to get up, but Captain Austin said, "Whip, you've been hit." I didn't know it, and I looked down and saw blood on my leg, and he said, "I'm going to help you out in this old shell hole and go get some corpsmen and get you out of here." And I said, "I don't want to get out of here, Captain." He said, "No, I want you out of here. You'll only put others at risk, and you'll be at risk yourself, and I want you out of here." And so he got us down to the aid station, and they just triaged me and sent me right onto the beach, because they didn't ask me anything about my brain injury or anything. They just saw my leg. Interesting enough, about 3 weeks ago, something like that maybe, I had the big end of the mortar, the smooth end of that mortar that was at the tip. It had broke off, and then there was the rough part up there. That thing, the whole thing went in, about the size of a golf ball or a walnut, and it went clear to the bone. And so they didn't bother about doing anything, and they just shipped me right on down. Well, 3 weeks. So in 1953, that thing had worked its way out just for the muscles and whatnot, until it would, when I'd sit down and double my leg up like this, it would push my pants leg up like this. It was just right under the skin,
Right.
just pushing up. And so it'd hurt like crazy if I'd touch it, because the rough part of that thing was sticking up
Yeah.
against the skin. The smooth part was down. So anyway, I went down to the VA, and they just froze it with that stuff and cut it out right there in the doctor's office with a little scalpel. And I had nothing ever bothered me since, till 3 weeks ago. I put on these trousers, and something caught, and it felt like I had a thorn in my trousers. And I took them off for a wood sliver or something.
Right.
And I took my trousers off and just rubbed these two fingers across this a little spot here, just about a couple inches to the right of where this main ball went in. And my finger here, right here, hooked onto something. In fact, there's still a little spot on my finger where that thing caught in there.
Yeah.
And it caught on there, and I just raised my finger up like this, and as I raised it up, I pulled a sliver of that steel, that iron, about 5 to 6 inches long, straight up out of my leg.
Huh.
It was bright and shiny as sterling silver.
Huh.
And didn't bleed, just a little hole about the size of a shingle nail was in there, and it just kind of bubbled up in that hole, and that's all it bled, just kind of just there.
Wow.
Been in there since 1945, 10 o'clock in the morning, and February the 19th.
And that's something.
And I found another one in this lake the other day that's coming out. I know it's coming out now, but
So you get hit. So you make it ashore. You're not on shore very long. You get hit. Then what happens?
well, they sent me down to the beach, and we laid there on the beach from, this was about probably around 10:30 in the morning, and we laid there on the beach till the sun was just setting. And just then we had an air raid, and they come in, and the destroyers come in and set up smoke screens all through with where those troop ships were, taking on wounded guys as a hospital, temporary hospital ship. And we laid there till that thing was all over, and they put us on an old LSM, one of those great big old flat bottom things that they load with tanks and trucks and all that. And they put us just on the floor of that thing, the deck of that thing, and we got loaded up just at sunset and went out, just eased our way out, and there that smoke was still so thick. I looked up, and there, right in front of us, was a razor edge, it looked like, the bow of a ship. Looked like it went up there 1,000 yards, man, it looked like there was no end to that thing. So that old coxswain, he was up there wheeling around good shape, and we got over to the side, and they said, we can't take you, we're loaded. You have to go on to the next ship. And so we went and wandered around there in the smoke and found another one. Went to 6 ships, and the last one we pulled up to, and the guys on the ship had a megaphone, and they were hollering down. We didn't have any kind of electric horns or anything like that. He was hollering down, we can't take you, you'll have to move on. And the old Lieutenant J.G. was heading up that little boat. He said, I'm not moving, I've got guys that need help. The captain come on, he says, move it on, we can't take you, we're loaded. He said, I'm not moving, Captain. And he sat there, and I remember saying, yay!
Yeah.
Because the guy next to me, he didn't have any flesh, as far as I could see from the top of his helmet, from where his helmet came out, all down through his chest, and he had a kind of a black screen type stuff, real fine, like plastic looking thing, over his whole chest, and you could see his heart pushing up against that thing, and his lungs moving back and forth,
Yeah.
and he was gasping and just spraying everybody there every time he'd talk, and I thought, this guy needs help.
Right.
And I remember just saying, yay, when that old
Yeah.
J.G. sassed the captain back. And they sassed back and forth for a little while, and the old captain realized this guy wasn't moving. So they sent a hook down, and on this hook was 4 cables. One, they were hooked in this big old hook, and then at the end was a loop of each cable. They put these loops around the ends of our stretcher and put a belt around us so we wouldn't fall out. Raised us up like that, swinging around in the air as we went up.
Wow.
Took us off, and again they triaged me and put me on the deck in the crew's quarters there, right on the first deck.
What'd they do with your clothes?
I have no idea. My weapons, clothes, or anything, I have no idea whatever happened to them. And when I went up there, these sacks were all folded up, you know. I just went, reached down and pulled it down and folded it down. And the guy just below me, he was, I thought he was just given dope and put out, you know, or some kind of medicine to knock him out. But he was a funny color. He was kind of orangey looking and brown and black. But now I realize he was dead. But he looked so young, I thought, man, that kid's not more than 12 years old.
Wow.
And I got in my bunk, and the next morning we had an air raid that night, and there was a ship tied up beside us, and he was trying to shoot at these airplanes and with these anti-aircraft stuff, and he hit our radar and knocked some of that down. It come a clanging down, and I thought, boy, that plane had landed on there. And I just thought, how in the world is that boy going to ever get out of here? I can't do anything with him. And so anyway, I went to sleep that night, and the next morning the captain said the smoking lamp is out. And we're going to have a burial at sea. And I wanted to go down and watch those kids be buried just to honor them. So I got in and got out of my sack and got out, and this boy was gone. So I'm sure he was dead when I saw him, and he was in the group being buried probably, but about 15 of those kids. And I stood there, and that was the saddest thing I'd seen up until that point. I just remember standing there dry, crying like a baby. The old chaplain said a word, and they played taps and shot some rifle fire off, and these guys were laying on these little paddles and that wire cage shaped like these old caskets used to be that were narrow at the feet and broader at the shoulders. And this wire cage was the same, and they'd put a shell in there to weight it down, and the big gun shell, I don't know what size they were with them. But they put that in this casket with the guy, or in this wire thing with this guy. And then they shut it up and read they said the prayer, the chaplain said a prayer and played taps, and the rifle fire went off, and then these things slid out underneath of the flag and down into the Pacific. And we were right into Marianas Islands, and the Marianas Trench, you know, is the deepest place in the Pacific Ocean. And I just thought, this is the saddest way to die I could have ever imagined.
Wow.
10,000 miles from home, nobody there that you knew. Nobody knew what happened to you or where you're even buried.
Yeah.
And I thought, what a way to die. And here, the deepest spot of the ocean, we were right there above Marianas Trench, 7 miles down. And I just remember, I didn't know much about the scriptures, but I remember reading in Revelation that death and hell will give up their dead one day to be judged. These boys are going to rise again one day and be judged. But, oh, that was a sad day for me.
Yeah. So what'd you do after that?
Well, I heard a guy say something right behind me, and I recognized his voice, and his name was Richard Thomas, and he was a hellion. He would have a different woman every weekend and have them on the base, and they'd come out there and he would sleep with them, and oh, he was a rascal as far as his life was concerned, but neatest guy in the world. And I heard his voice, and I said, Thomas, I didn't know you were here. And he said, yeah, I got hit in the back with a mortar or something. I turned around, and just as I turned around, he said to me and I said to him at the same time. You know how that'll happen sometimes. We got to get off of this ship some way or other. So we looked around. I went over there where he was at, and we looked around. There was no boats on that ship that we could see. And finally we saw one way down in the bow of the ship. There was a coxswain down there kind of wiping off the coil or something with a grease rag. And we saw him down there, and we hobbled down there, and we just had on Navy pajamas at that time. And while I was going down there, we went by a pile of gear that they called the Dead Man's Pile that had everything we needed. And we got down there, and I said, are you going ashore? And he said, I am tomorrow morning. I said, can we ride with you? And he said, it's all right with me. I'd just get different clothes on if I were you. And so we outfitted ourselves going back with this, out of this Dead Man's Pile. I had helmets, rifles, canteens, a gas mask, everything we needed. Dungarees, I had some other kid's name on my dungarees for the rest of the time I was in the Marine Corps then. And I just marked them out with a magic marker or something. I don't know if we had magic marker then or what, but we just might have marked them out. And I had his name on there the rest of the time I was in the Marine Corps along with my own. I don't remember who he was. I wished I'd have kept that old blouse because it'd be interesting to see if I could run him down and
Right.
see if he was...
Right. So you grab some gear out of the dead man's pile. Then the next morning comes. So then what'd you do?
Well, we were out there and we didn't ask anybody because we knew they were going to turn us down. And the only thing I was scared of was what's Captain Austin going to say to me. I just hate to think I just deliberately disobeyed him and thumbed my nose
Right.
at his, because he was such a jewel of a Christian guy. And so going out there, I just rode along dreading to meet him. We got out there and saw our truck just pulling away from the beach, or trying to. He was stuck in that stuff, and it had a caterpillar on him and just pulling him up out of that stuff. And he had our markings on it, and so we asked him, you know where our communications section is? He says, it's right up there to the left of G Battery. And that's where I'm going. You can just follow me if you want to. And we didn't want to get too close to him because he had that truck full of 105 shells. And he got hit, and we didn't want to be in that vicinity. So we kind of lagged behind him a ways and got up there and walked around